Hey guys, what's happening? Our slave masters did a lot to us, and today our leaders are doing the same to us in a different manner. I waste a lot of brain matter today listening to Dr. Rowley in his press conference about an issue in the Newsday, and I was really lost. He went off his bunkers, he almost blew a fuse, popped a vein over what I don't know, just to answer a simple question. First of all, what did he went bunkers over today? Let's see. So he went bunkers over this. US can put troops in Trinidad and Tobago. Government signs agreement as White House ups pressure on Maduro. Well, first of all, let's look at the headline. US can put troops in Trinidad and Tobago. Headline never said US to put troops in Trinidad and Tobago. Never said US will put troops in Tobago or Trinidad. It says US can put troops in Trinidad and Tobago. And they were talking about an agreement that Trinidad renegotiated with the US. Negotiation has been for a long time. Government signs agreement as White House ups pressure on Maduro. That's a fact. I'm not sure which world Mr. Rowley is living in, but the US has been putting pressure on Maduro for a very long time. And as late as November 27th this year, the US to sanction Maduro aligned officials to put pressure on Venezuela's president to accept the election results. So they have been putting pressure on Maduro. I am not sure which world Mr. Rowley is living into. The first part of the headline apparently got him bonkers. US can put troops in Trinidad and Tobago. But the question is, can they put troops in Trinidad and Tobago based on the SOFA agreement? He never answered the question. But let's take a listen to this in his press conference
Dr.
today.
Rowley, Gregory McBurney from Trinidad Newsday. I
don't find it's a smiling note, eh?
No, just the irony of it. But
this is not a laughing matter.
I know. Just to set the record straight, our reporter did reach out to Minister Hines and Minister Brown. Neither of them chose to respond.
And which one of them told your reporter that?
Well, our understanding is that the SOFA agreement has several clauses which include one that says the US can launch military personnel and machinery to countries in conflict from signatories to the agreement. Ghana is also a signatory.
Stick a pin. Is that where interpretation comes from?
The SOFA agreement.
Countries in conflict. What conflict is Trinidad and Tobago involved in, or likely to be involved in?
Two countries in conflict from signatories. So anybody who has signed up to it, for example, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, the United States can use either country as a launching pad, I guess, for that.
Yes, Mr. Rowley. In short, yes, the US had bases in Trinidad and Tobago, but we're not going back to that discussion. First of all, the reporter said, one, we contacted the Minister of National Security, basically, and you as an individual who has information, nobody gave answers to them. Newspapers can't sit and wait until someone decides that they're going to respond to them. There are deadlines to meet, there are things to do. That's number one. I'm not sure why Mr. Rowley went off his bunkers. And of course, secondly, where the reporter stated factually that the agreement does have clauses which said that these countries who signed up, the US can send military personnel to their country to deal with other countries that are in conflict. That is a fact. The question is, the agreement which was renegotiated with Trinidad and Tobago, does it allow for that? That is the question that we all have to ask. Let's continue.
In short, we are US based.
But does the agreement...
No, in short, your interpretation of that is that we are US based.
No,
so if two countries have conflict, the US can do that. Yeah. Sovereign Trinidad and Tobago will stand aside, and the US will just do that because we've signed an agreement where if two countries are in conflict, and I gather you will tell me we're not in conflict. I don't know of any conflict that we are involved in. Right? Your interpretation there, and what you're trying to say is that because you didn't speak to Mr. Hines or because I didn't talk to your reporter, that makes this headline justifiable? Where is...
Mr. Rowley goes on and on again about this issue of conflict, and Trinidad and Tobago is not involved in any conflict. That is not what this whole thing is about. The whole thing is about is to turn it around on the media, to make the media look bad. The question is, the agreement that was renegotiated with the US, does it involve, are there clauses in it which says that the US can send troops to Trinidad and Tobago if there's a conflict in Venezuela, and can Trinidad be used as a launching pad for those troops to go into Venezuela? That is the question that is on everybody's mind. And until you answer that, in the absence of any sort of reasonable response. Everybody has a right to think that way. That is the problem with the politicians that we're having today. Nobody wants to answer questions and they skirt around and blame somebody else. For some reason or other, we don't know. But the media doesn't have time to wait on you for 50 days or the Minister of National Security for 60 days to answer a question, which I believe they will never answer. And the question you have to ask yourself is, why aren't they answering that question? So he keeps skirting around and skirting around. Let's continue.
And why is it that this headline now runs counter to everything I just said of our years of foreign policy and diplomacy when conflict was around us?
So I'd just like to clarify though, says that the SOFA agreement does not say what we understand that it says. That
it is not for me, for you to misunderstand anything. What if what I say is how you understand it, it is what the fact is.
So it doesn't say that
you have published here the U.S. can put troops in Trinidad and Tobago.
See what I'm talking about? He goes around and skirts around the issue one more time. The reporter asks him a second time, can the U.S. put troops in Trinidad and Tobago? He doesn't answer the question. He goes on to say if he thinks this is a tutorial. So you're the prime minister of a country. There is a national security minister. The national security minister doesn't answer the newspaper. They don't give them any answer. They refuse. They don't give them an answer. You as prime minister comes to have a press conference. You take a press conference. The journalist is asking you, the agreement that was signed, does it have a clause that says the U.S. can put troops in Trinidad and Tobago if there is a conflict nearby in any country and the U.S. wants to participate in that, wants to quell any disturbance in the country? You don't answer it either at your press conference, and you still want to blame the media for using a headline like that. What a prime minister. Our slave masters did a lot to us back in the day by putting us against one another. And now we have a new set of slave masters in prime ministers in this Caribbean region because they're all becoming very tyrannical. They don't like to answer questions and they hide other things from people. That's what they do. And they blame the media for doing their work. So he says that, but he doesn't answer the journalist. But the journalist is asking him a question twice. Can the U.S. put troops in Trinidad and Tobago according to the renegotiated SOFA agreement? The journalist says to him that according to the agreement that he read online, the U.S. can put troops in any country that signed up on this agreement to deal with another country that is in conflict. So we're looking at Trinidad and Tobago here. If there's a conflict in Venezuela and the U.S. thinks that the best place to put troops to access Venezuela is Trinidad and Tobago, according to that agreement, the U.S. can deploy troops to Trinidad and Tobago. He's simply asking him, does the agreement that Trinidad signed with the U.S., does it involve that? He doesn't answer. He doesn't answer. But in the absence of facts from those in charge, speculations will run the day. That is all.
So the agreement does not say that the U.S. can launch military personnel.
I am not engaging in any tutorial with you. I'm simply saying you should.
See that again? He asks him the question again and he says, I'm not involved in any tutorial with you. To me, that is not a good answer from a prime minister of a country. If he thinks that the issue is one of a burning issue, he says that CARICOM people are calling him to asking him, what is this about? Well, if you think it's such a burning issue, if it's such a serious issue across the Caribbean and leaders are calling you to ask you, what is this? Why don't you just tell the nation, okay, yes, we renegotiated the agreement with the Americans. There are clauses in it which says that they can send troops to Trinidad if there is a conflict nearby and they want to use Trinidad as a staging post to get their troops into another country. It's either yes or no. It's done. You're the prime minister. I believe the whole of Trinidad will believe you. But you don't answer the question. So in the absence of anything from those in authority, people have a right to speculate on what they want to speculate. It says, according to the Trinidad Newsday, it says the agreement allows for U.S. troop deployment in TNT in times of natural disasters. In the event of a conflict on TNT's doorstep in Venezuela, the U.S. can also deploy troops to TT for a possible response by enacting the SOFA. As the southernmost country in the Caribbean, TT is mere miles away from Venezuela. Its closest point is Cedros. The ACSA agreement, also signed on December 10th, provides a similar opportunity for U.S. troops to be deployed to TT to respond to conflicts in Venezuela. This is what the newspaper says. The U.S. Embassy said ACSA is a formal logistic mechanism that allows the U.S. Department of Defense to exchange logistic support, supplies, and services directly between eligible countries and international organizations. Newsday understands both agreements cut red tape that could slow a U.S. deployment, but in the event that the U.S. is contemplating a deployment, it still must seek permission from the U.S., from the TT government to do so. So it's a simple thing. Just answer the question. Does the agreement allow for that? And outline to the people of your country the steps in which it allows for that. That's simple. You go hot under the collar, you go bonkers. In the meantime, you know what's very interesting in all of this? The same December 10th was the same day that Maduro apparently warned CARICOM of Guyana and the US Southcom collaboration dangers. Same Southcom that was in Trinidad had to do with the signing of this agreement. That's what Maduro did on the same 10th of December when the agreement was being signed. Maduro is here warning CARICOM about Southcom. Does Maduro know something? What's going on? Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro urged the Caribbean community CARICOM to be wary of the designs of U.S. Southern Command in Guyana following a recent meeting between Guyanese president with U.S. military leadership. It says, I call on the Caribbean on CARICOM to be alert because the Southern Command is there provoking our region and Venezuela is here ready and well positioned to defend its historical rights, said Maduro on a broadcast. Tensions between Venezuela and Guyana increased in recent years due to oil exploration by Guyana, together with ExxonMobil in the territorial waters of disputed Essequibo region. Venezuela maintains that 160,000 square kilometers strip has been part of its territory since the country's independence from Spain in the 19th century. So isn't this just interesting? And on the same day that the U.S. Southcom is in Trinidad and Tobago renegotiating the SOFA agreement with Trinidad, Venezuela is warning CARICOM about U.S. Southcom collaboration dangers within the very same region. That's just an interesting one. I guess Rowley doesn't know anything about that either because he seemed to be lost in transition someplace where nobody knows about. Now, the thing is, what is the SOFA agreement? What does it say? Well, according to the U.S. military side, here this is what it is. What is a SOFA? An international agreement between a state or international organization sending military and other forces. That's one. And a state which has consented to receive those forces. Defines obligations of forces sent, defines immunities from receiving state law, and privilege receiving state will provide. So the status of forces agreement SOFA is an international agreement between a state or an international organization which is sending military and other forces and the state which has consented to receive those forces. It defines the obligation of the forces being sent as well as the immunities from receiving state law as well as privileges receiving state will provide those forces. That is what a SOFA agreement entails as well. Mr. Rowley did point out a few other things. However, apparently he did not point out this to the Trinidad and Tobago public. But this is what a SOFA agreement entails. The question is, the SOFA agreement that Trinidad and Tobago signed with the U.S. or renegotiated with the U.S., does it entail this clause? Mr. Rowley never answered it. And the newspaper never got any information from the Minister of National Security about it. So in the absence of all of this, Trinidad and Tobago has a right to speculate as to what is in the agreement. And so the headline in the Newsday, not one single thing is wrong with the headline. And if you search for SOFA all over the internet, I just read to you from a document from the Department of Defense. But if you search the entire Google and search for SOFA, it says yes, a status of SOFA agreement allows the U.S. to station troops in other countries. So all the journalist was trying to simply get from him the agreement that we signed, Trinidad, with the U.S. or renegotiated, does it allow for that? All Mr. Rowley had to say yes or no. And if yes, outline the steps how that can happen. If no, that's it. It's finished. They didn't have to go hot under the collar. Neither did he have to go bunkers or try to pop a vein. But it's all interesting that the agreement was signed on the day when Maduro was alerting CARICOM about the dangers of Southcom in the Caribbean region. It's just very, very, very interesting. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for viewing, and keep on sharing and subscribing to the channel. Leave your comments in the section below.